Welcome to the Mr. Bill podcast. I'm Anand Harsh, his manager, and as of the past few episodes, fueled by guilt and obligation to record these intros for the podcast because Bill is such a bad businessman, he is allergic to self-promotion. His guest today is Matt Zoe, an English electronic music producer who has spent a lot of time in both the US and the UK and dabbles in as many genres as Bill. Over the course of his career, he's released drum and bass on Hospital Records, trance and EDM on Anjuna Beats and Armada, and is now singularly focused on his own label, Mad Zoo, which has not only released his sophomore album, Self-Assemble, but most recently an exciting compilation of up-and-coming acts on This Is Mad 2, which features Saruda, Anti-Negative, Chi, Chef Boyer Beats, and Rohan, among others. I, of course, am not allergic to self-promotion, so let me shill a bit on Bill's behalf. This podcast takes our producer Robert several hours each week to get in shipshape, so we ask that you please support the show by becoming a subscriber on Patreon. You can get perks like a monthly bonus episode, which we're internally debating right now what that should be for June, so if you're in Bill's Discord server or on his Facebook group, Illegal Immigrants, chuck your suggestions in there. Head over to patreon.com/MrBillsTunes for all that info and to support this show. And remember, go to MrBillsTunes.com to sign up as a hardcore Ableton-ear, and he will make you a better producer. I guarantee it. Okay, I've been dying to say this. Enjoy this episode of the Mr. Bill podcast with Grammy-nominated producer Matt Zoe.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you are listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're 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 listening to the Mr. Bill podcast. Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. How's I noticed that, and I'm not sure if you were doing this before the whole pandemic thing kicked in, but I noticed you've been streaming a ton lately, like almost every day, right?
Well, I slowed down a little bit. Yeah, at first I was streaming every day, just in like sort of like, well, what am I gonna do now? You know,
right.
I'm meant to play all these shows, and yeah, kind of did that for a while just to like keep up momentum, really. And then yeah, I got busy with a bunch of other stuff, and now I pretty much stream only on Fridays, and maybe I'll have like a guest on during the week, maybe. But yeah, it's been going well though.
Nice. Yeah, I remember watching one of your streams. I think you were doing like max MSP stuff, and I raided you, and then like 100 people came in and started spamming a copy pasta.
Yeah.
And you were just like, what's going on?
Was that during the quarantine? Oh yeah, it must have been.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's quarantine going for you as an artist?
Well, at first it was kind of difficult. You know, just adjusting. But, you know, now I've been working on these digital events. It feels a little bit more like I have a purpose. Before I was sort of waking up and, you know, just sort of forcing myself to just get in the studio and, you know, soldier on. But yeah, now that I found something else to do for like a sort of day job, making music is now a lot of fun again. So
yeah, I had a similar experience, honestly. It was like when this thing first started, I was like, fuck. It almost felt like my whole like job of making music in some way, and it almost felt in some way like it was pointless. I was like, oh, what's the fucking point? And then I was just sitting around for a few weeks, like not doing anything. And I don't know why it felt that way, because I don't necessarily think that I make music specifically for other people to listen to. Although that's a big part of it, obviously putting music out is kind of the other side of making it. But yeah, I don't know. The first few weeks was a weird vibe for sure. I've had pretty similar experience in that way of like over time, slowly getting used to the quarantine lifestyle again. Because I think as an artist, right, you get into this routine of sort of traveling like every weekend, and that becomes like just the norm to just be so fucking involved with like travel and socializing and being at all these events. And then even if you consider yourself introverted and consider yourself whilst traveling to not really be like that social, you realize when it's all taken away, like how much you actually are, right? And I think that kind of fucked a lot of artists up for sure.
And not only that, it's just like, why do we make music besides for ourselves? And why do we make the type of music we make? It's like I make dance music because I enjoy playing dance music in clubs and seeing other people dance to it. And I had, a little bit of a struggle for a while, just like, well, why am I making this kind of music now when it's, the audience for it, it's not relevant anymore because nobody's listening to it in that environment. And then I started just messing around with like ambient stuff and, just like trying to make stuff that's nice, easy listening music. And then I was like, fuck this. It's just like not what I got into music for.
Have you reverted back to making dance music again?
Yeah. And instead of thinking like, oh, I'll never be able to play this out, well, I'll try and create the place to play it out and create my own little world to sort of reinvent what I was doing before.
For sure. I've noticed a lot of people, even though, obviously you just mentioned dance music is generally created to be played in this like particular environment, like through a big sound system, crushed against fucking 500 other people or 1,000 other people in a sweaty club, where the sound pressure of the system is just filling the room so immensely, and there's fucking bottles of liquor going around and shit. It's just like this very specific vibe and stuff. It's kind of interesting to me now that that's been taken away, how many people still are listening to dance music though. And I think that is sort of just like a testament to how much when we listen to music at home, we're just abstracting the environment in which we've experienced it before to enjoy it, right? Like, for instance, if you ever try and show like psytrance or something like that to somebody who's never been to like a bush doof or a festival in the forest that's playing that kind of music, it's almost like impossible for them to understand why it's interesting and cool, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly. It's all about the context of where it's being played. But yeah, I think it's interesting that dance music is still as popular as ever, because I think going deeper into it, it's like more connecting with our sort of tribal past, the relentless drums and stuff like that. It's like dance music is still relevant even now, when we can't go to clubs, because it still connects with something primal, I think, within us.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So you're British, right?
I was born in London, yes, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd call myself British or call myself American. It's a hard position to be, but right. I'm like sort of half American, half British.
Okay. How long have you lived in America?
So yeah, in total, I've lived 19 years in America. It used to be evenly matched, and now I'm more on the American side. I was raised in Cleveland from the age of 1 to 10, so I learned how to speak and be in America, and then I moved back to the UK when I was 11. So I learned how to, be an adult in the UK and discovered dance music and all that. Okay,
so your production formative years were in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I've only been to London once, and I went there for like 2 weeks just to visit the guy who does all the artwork for everything I do. And I just noticed over there, like all the producers that I met there who I went to their studios and stuff, even though they weren't popular or like really even playing shows or anything like that, just the quality of producer there is higher, I feel like, than America. And that might be like contentious to say, but that's just how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, like going back and forth, and having lived there and having lived here, I feel like there is a tad bit of romanticism of like overseas music, especially from like the North American side to the British side. But yeah, I think maybe there is a general like better quality of ethos in London, like less fakeness, I guess. But there is still that huge element of it, like over here.
Yeah, so I feel like in London, it's almost like, well, for starters, the weather's like always kind of drab and grey. So more people are staying inside and just making music. Secondly, it doesn't seem like there's anywhere near as many shows or as much of a scene there as there is in America. And so the barrier to entry for playing a show there is like quite high, it seems like, just because there's not a lot of shows. So it's like you have to be really good to play the shows or whatever. And then it seems like in America, the opposite is true. There's so many shows and so many nights and so many events and so many like curated, you know, trippy Tuesdays and wacky wubby Wednesdays and shit like that in like clubs all over the country, that the quality for entry to go and play one of those nights is not that high. Like you can almost get away with doing like the bare minimum and still playing shows. And I feel like maybe some of this plays into what I was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. The barrier to entry is probably lower in the US, but again, it's a much bigger country. There's 500 or 600 million people. I forgot the exact.
I think it's like 350.
350? Okay. Well, either way, the UK is still, and it's smaller, and it's the gatekeepers are more established and more long-lived. I feel like in America, it's a lot easier to be an up and comer and get respect, and whereas in the UK, it feels like you have to have been around a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a bit nepotistic or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Where they'll sort of just put on people who have been in, like pay respects to people who have been in the scene longer and shit like that, even though necessarily they may not have more fans or be better producers or anything like that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never actually played a show or been booked to play a show in pretty much anywhere in Europe or the UK. The closest I've come is Israel, which I've played like 5 times, but I don't know if I'm going to play Israel again because every time I play there, I seem to lose a few fans.
Yeah, that's weird that Israel is super receptive and nowhere else. Is it? I don't know. I mean, I know Israelis are super into psytrance.
Mm-hmm.
Might be that connection there. But
I think that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there is definitely an Atlantic divide in dance music, and I'd say even stronger since post EDM explosion. Yeah, it's obvious. When I moved here, my bookings in Europe and UK just went down completely to almost none. I was meant to play in France this year, but obviously that didn't happen. But that was going to be the first time I've played in Europe since like 2015, something ridiculous.
Oh, damn. Why do you think that happened? Like, why have the bookings in Europe slowed down?
Besides the obvious, just logistics of it, it's obviously cheaper to book European DJs in Europe because you don't have to pay for the flights. And then the other way around, it's expensive for Europeans to get the visa to play in the States.
Mm.
So yeah, it just instantly creates this divide. And yeah, then there's like the stylistic and like culture divide, I think. The American dance music culture and the European dance music culture are similar, but they're also very different.
Right. Well, it's almost like hip hop roots in America versus like these sort of more techno roots or something in Europe, right?
Right. Exactly.
So it's kind of like out in America, it seems like you had the hip hop thing start, and then you had like, I guess, Detroit techno and stuff like that. But then it seems to have sort of, well, I guess they're two different scenes really, but it seems like on the bass music side of things, it all kind of, in my opinion, it looks to seem like it started with hip hop and then sort of evolved into this like trap and dubstep and then this hybrid EDM thing or something.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
One thing I wanted to talk about is like I was going through your stuff I don't know, a little while ago now, and I just noticed that it seems like you started out as like almost a trance artist, and then, well, I guess like you probably started out as a lot of people do, being in bands and shit like that, but it seems like you started as like a trance artist in electronic music, and then sort of went to drum and bass, and then are doing like halftime now or something. I don't know. How do you feel about making like all sorts of different genres in music? Because I do the same thing. Like I make a lot of electro, like I do Mousetrap stuff, and I've released electro and stuff on Mousetrap, and then I've also released, you know, tons of IDM on my own label, and I've released like a bunch of ambient shit and like just a swath of shit. And I find it impossible, or not impossible, but like very difficult to sort of brand myself as a cohesive artist to talent buyers or even people listening. You know, like I'll put something out and they'll be like, oh, but that wasn't the reason I got into you, what's this, you know? And it's just very hard to become like a packaged thing that you can sell to someone. But some people manage to do it, like Deadmau5 managed to do it. He makes IDM, he makes house, he makes trance, he makes whatever. And I guess just because the biggest tracks of his, like Strobe and all that shit that got big, were just this like 4 to the floor thing. People just see him as that now. And but it almost seems like he can do whatever and get away with it. Do you have this issue, I guess, is my question, of like making a bunch of different stuff and then trying to package yourself to events or agencies or talent buyers or whatever, and have a, or even on the fan reception side, do you have the problem of you know, going into a club and playing a set that maybe the fans thought you weren't going to play, and then getting some weird receptions?
Yeah, I definitely have a problem with that. You know, when I started, I was actually already releasing drum and bass and trance at the same time. So it's like I started really varied. When I first got into production, I was making all sorts of stuff, more varied than I am now, even just trying anything, really. And that's just what ended up happening, is I got into drum and bass and the more trancey side of stuff on the other end of it. But then, yeah, trying to market myself has always been difficult. And I think no matter what you do, you end up specializing in something. You know, I might be able to like produce most genres, but really I feel like I excel most in like trance, house, and drum and bass, just because those are what I'm familiar with. But yeah, when it comes to the marketing side, in recent years, I would just like split it up. So if a venue wanted to book me, they would either get, you know, Matzo drum and bass set, Matzo trance set, you know, or yeah, just basically trying to split up the different factors of my musical taste into, yeah, I wish I thought about it from the get-go, but then again, that would have limited my progress as an artist, because I wouldn't have had the freedom to do whatever I wanted and explore. And yeah, it limited me in some ways, but I definitely don't regret it, because it made me into the artist I'm now. And also, it's never too late to create a whole other project. And, you know, look at Damon album with the Gorillaz. It's like, it's never too late to just try something new. And it's like, I see my whole career so far has been like the schooling, and, you know, and my relatively small success, it like feels like a graduation to go do something bigger. So yeah, I try not to regret that. I never stuck to one style or anything, because I don't feel like the Matzo name is the be all and end all of what I'm going to do in my life, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like, because not only do I write a bunch of different music, but I also just do a bunch of shit, right? Like I release tutorials, I do this podcast, I, you know, play shows in a bunch of different projects. You know, I run a label, I run both a record label releasing music and a sample pack label, like releasing samples, and they all are like tied to the Mr. Bill name in some way. And I think about it sometimes in the same way, like, should I have packaged this all differently to like sell it? And then I think about it as just maybe that's some weird thought that's coming out of some place of, you know, fucking successful capitalism bullshit stuff in my brain, and really, I would have wanted to do all the same things anyway. So who the fuck cares like how it's being sold to people if they can't, understand it? Then it's kind of, I mean, it affects me, but it's kind of their problem, right?
I think it just depends on what scale you're comfortable with at existing. It's like, I think if either of us packaged ourselves nicely from the beginning and had a really good marketing plan, and we both might be at a more successful level than we are now, but we might not be as happy. We might not be as fulfilled as artists. We might not feel as accomplished even because, we only stuck to one path. So it's a give and take. And I feel comfortable at the scale I'm in. Like, I feel like I have enough respect and enough reason to keep going. That's all I need is just encouragement to keep going, and then I'm happy. I don't need to be a hugely successful artist for that to happen. So
Speaking of keeping going, I read, so I was just doing a little bit of reconnaissance before this, just to figure out some talking points and stuff. And I read somewhere in an interview in 2017, you said you were going to go do other things in life and stop doing music. What happened with why did you have that thought process? Because I've had the same thought process for my own reasons.
Yeah, that was a few years ago after a pretty difficult time in my life. It was a big turning point in my life. And after that, I didn't do music for a while. There was 6 months where I couldn't really write any music. Yeah, I think it just that was me saying that at the time because that was genuinely how I felt, and that was the case. But it took some time for me to recover, and I found the love for it again, and it grew 10 times stronger as well. So that's just what happens. Sometimes things don't seem as interesting anymore or don't feel right, and you just leave it, and then you come back to it with a new, fresh set of ears and eyes, and a more open mind, I guess.
I almost feel like I have seasons, I guess is the best way to describe it. I'll have a season where all I want to do is start new tunes, right? And then I'll start kind of in the back of my mind getting a little bit self-conscious of that and frustrated, and start questioning my ability to even finish music, and just be like, oh, you're just a fucking dum-dum who keeps starting whips, and you're never going to finish anything. But then kind of get into this other season where you're just actually, there's a whole album here. I'm just going to work on these and finish that. And then there's other seasons where you don't feel like writing music at all. And I think it's taken me a long time of sort of objectively almost looking at my behavior and just realizing that I just have these ebbs and flows in that way, and just to be comfortable with that. So I totally understand that.
Absolutely. And you have to figure that out and then know how to cope with it. And the way I cope with it is I don't force myself ever to start actual music. I will only force myself to do sound design. And even sound design, if I have to force myself, I'll just make some random texture white noise crap. Just force myself to make anything. And something will always come out of that. I'll have an idea to make something else, and out of that, I'll have another idea to make some other sound, and then a track might appear out of that, So it's really about not forcing yourself and just realizing that you're in a cycle of seasons, as you say. And the seasons might not be balanced either. It might be a really long winter and a extremely short spring and summer. I naturally just get things done that way because when I'm in the sort of spring and summer, so to speak, of my creative cycle, I don't have any problem making the most of it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I saw a serum patch that you made, which was a rainforest thing or whatever. That was pretty cool. Speaking of sound design, for the fucking life of me could have never been able to get into doing like pure sound design sessions for some reason. Like every time I try to do sound design sessions, I just I don't know. I always just very quickly it turns into me making music out of the sound that I'm making.
Well, that's a good thing then. I mean, if that just means that you're always inspired to make music, when you hear a sound, it'll give you ideas. For me, it's like I'll have months where I just don't feel like starting a musical idea, and I just feel like being a weird mad scientist in the lab concocting sounds. But yeah, that gives me a whole audio library of shit to play with when I do go to make music, and then the music writing process becomes super quick.
Right. See, to me, I feel like that is more positive, like the ability to make these big libraries for yourself to work on, and being able to compartmentalize the work in that way, to me, seems like a positive thing, because it's just difficult for me to do that. And I think the reason why is I would never like consider myself a proactive artist, right? Like I never almost ever get an idea in my head and go like, oh, that would be a good musical idea, and then make it. It's almost always the other way around. I would consider myself a reactive artist. So either I hear something and like from somebody else, and then I go, oh, that gives me an idea. Like they didn't explore this concept of that melodic idea or something like that. So I'll start working on something of my own based around, some other thing. Or like I was just saying with sound design, I'll make a sound, and then that will sort of give me these reactive ideas too. Would you put yourself, say, more in the one category over the other, or would you say it just sort of depends?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends what season I'm in.
Right.
Yeah, when I'm super inspired, I'll hear something, and it'll just make me want to figure out every aspect of that and try and create a variation of that that's more true to me. So yeah, most of my music is actually made that way, I'd say. Where
proactively?
Reactively,
right?
Absolutely.
I almost think proactive art is like bullshit. I think it's some like romantic thing that a lot of people like to think is the case. But even if you look back on just art forever, 90% of it is like some dude making a painting for a woman, or somebody writing a poem about a flower or something. It's like, in that case, like if he wrote a poem about a flower or made the piece of art for the woman, was it proactive or was it reactive? Like, did the woman give him that idea, and did the flower give him that idea to write the poem and stuff?
Yeah, it's all reactive. There's I believe there's no output without input, no matter what the case is. Inspiration doesn't come out of thin air. Every good idea was inspired by another good idea, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. In saying that, then, do you think it's possible to systematically solve the problem of, in quotation marks, never being inspired by just, say, creating some sort of tool or plugin that just generates stimulus to spit at you to give you reactive ideas?
No, because your brain isn't always ready to accept those ideas and put two and two together. I think just letting it happen naturally is the best way. As I said, like, I feel like having to force yourself to make an idea and execute some kind of complete idea is just too much pressure for most people, including me. And music should always be fun, in my opinion. If it's not fun, then you can hear it in the music. You can hear the struggle and the labor, and then it becomes a struggle and labor to listen to, in my opinion.
Do you notice that more with your own music, or do you notice that also in other people's music? And then have you also had cases where you've heard that in somebody else's music and then confirmed with them that was the case?
Absolutely, yeah. Both in my own and other people. Like, I had a friend who was working on this one tune for like a year. And I've worked on tunes for years, but like off and on. But he literally only worked on this one tune. He didn't work on any other tunes. He didn't work on any sound design. He just worked on this one tune for a whole year, and It was terrible. And he admitted it himself. It was terrible. And you just couldn't let this one track go. And you could hear it in the music and in the mix and everything, just how hard he tried to make it work, even though it wasn't working. And that's like an extreme case, you know? But I feel like it shows in the music if you're not having fun, if you're not inspired. And yeah, if you're not inspired, you're not having fun. There's no way you can make music without being inspired and have fun. It's like it then just becomes like placing blocks randomly.
I think everyone's had that experience, right? Like I for sure had that experience of going into the studio and being like, all right, gonna force myself to make music because I feel like I guess the reason you want to force yourself to make music is like you enjoy the feeling of fulfillment that you've gotten by making something successfully in the past. You also enjoy when you do nail it, seeing people's reactions to it and like feeling really fulfilled in that way too. So there's a lot on the line for like why you would want to do it, because it's the best feeling ever when you nail it. And then I can see the reasons for forcing it, but I think a lot of artists, including myself, have had that experience of forcing it and then coming out the other end just being like, well, that was a forced piece of shit.
I've never had the experience of where I've like forced a tune and then it came out good. It's never happened for me. I don't know about anyone else, but
have you ever worked on film or games or stuff like that?
Yeah, I did the trailer music, the outro trailer music. Sorry, the credits music for this sci-fi B movie called Robots, Our Robot Overlords.
Okay, and did you find doing that kind of work, because there's such a deadline on that sort of work, that you had to force anything there?
Not on that one, because that was particularly fun. The director gave me pretty much free reign to do whatever I wanted, so that was awesome. But I have worked on like trailers as well. I did the trailer for Rainbow Six Siege with...
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. I just had him on the podcast too.
Nice. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah, so we worked on that together, and that was all right. I didn't come away from that feeling like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But it was an interesting experience, and I still get offered work, and I still do demos for ads, you know, because it's always like a pitch. You're always competing against like 10 other people with these kind of things, at least. So I do those. It is a fun experiment because it does push you and challenge you. But yeah, it's not something that I would wake up in the morning and think, fuck, I really want to make a trailer.
Yeah. So I did I scored an entire Nicolas Cage film a few years ago called Mum and Dad. And it was demanding. Like, it took me about a year to do it. And it was like exactly what we're talking about with the forced work versus not. It was almost all forced. And because it was just so demanding. Like, I just needed to get so many pieces of music written so quickly for this thing. So I wasn't super happy with it when it came out, but listening back to it, I really like it actually. Like, if I listen back to the soundtrack, it doesn't sound that forced to me anymore for some reason. But at the time, I remember listening to it being like, this is whatever.
Well, were you given like a lot of leeway to do what you wanted, or were you running under strict instructions?
It was a bit of both. So essentially the director, I guess, wanted to do some John Carpenter-y type stuff like The Thing. So he sent me that and was like, I want it to be sort of like this, but also just do your own thing. And it's the same director who did Crank and Crank 2. So he got Mike Patton to do those. And I think when you get Mike Patton to do anything, you don't really get to tell him what to do, right? So so he's pretty comfortable, I think, with letting people do what they do. So that was cool. But there was like some vague instructions there. But I made so many temp pieces, like so many demos before something actually gelled with him and he liked it. So there was just like I think in total I made like 300 pieces of music or something, and only like 30 of them made it into the movie.
Yeah, that's how it is with these projects, though. It's like, working on a big team, it's like art by committee, and you've got to work in that system. But yeah, I think with those kind of projects, it is more like better in hindsight, because you see the collective work of everyone and how your work has improved the project overall, and that gives you the satisfaction. But yeah, at the time of working on it, it's you don't get any satisfaction, because
it's like the opposite of what you're talking about with work being, something that you actually wanted to do, and it's absolutely the exact opposite thing. It's like work that you like have to do
exactly
on a certain timeline and stuff like that.
Yeah. And yeah, it's also about making those things fun, though. Like, if somebody asks you to do something, like try and do something that you could do easily with a contact patch. It's like, it's more fun to like try and do it the hard way of like, finding the instrument that you're looking for and recording it maybe, or, trying to manipulate something.
Yeah. Do you know Tom Holkenberg, Junkie XL or whatever?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he's got some tutorials on a YouTube channel where he kind of outlines his process for making some soundtracks, and he talked about the Tomb Raider one. And what he did is he got drums specifically built from like these Amazonians or whatever, and then shipped them to America, and then recorded, like multi-sampled all of them, and made his own contact instrument out of these like bespoke drums.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder how much of that is like, yes, he was looking for the perfect sound quality, but really he just wants, this is like his playground. I love his YouTube channel, by the way. It's like one of my favorites. And yeah, it's because you can see he has so much fun. He goes in every day, everything's always turned on, and he's just in a playground. And that's the point, is you can hear that in the scores he makes and the music he makes and everything.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I guess like at that point when you're like however old he is, 45 years old or 50 or however much, like he's just been doing this forever, and he's just having to go yeah, I guess you have to kind of figure out ways to reinvent your job, right?
Exactly. And yeah, not just for if you're doing scoring stuff. I feel like this applies very much to even if you're making your own music. It's like finding ways to make it fun, no matter what. Like, for the longest time, I was stuck just like using my DAW and my plugins, trying to figure out everything with that and getting good results. For the longest time, I was like just doing all the stuff in the box and getting better at sound design and mixing and everything, but not having fun anymore, because I was just using the same tools, same ideas that I was before, just getting better at it, but I wasn't having fun. And it was showing in my music. I felt like, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I started just buying various toys to play with, like synths and other pedals and, just anything that I can just fiddle with and have some fun. And yeah, maybe it sounds better, but really it's just about having new toys to play with and making it fun, and also making your studio a place that you want to be in.
Yeah, obviously there's like this whole analog versus digital argument, right? And there's all these people who are always like, oh, you get analog because it sounds better and because it, you'll get a better quality signal out of it, et cetera, et cetera. But really, I think the main benefit of it is exactly what you're saying. It just makes it just makes you think differently about the way you're creating, right? Like versus if you're just opening Serum all the time. And even though Serum is like a much more able and much cheaper synthesizer than probably like any modular synthesizer you're ever going to build, the modular stuff will always make you just think about shit a little bit differently. And that's kind of where the fun is of it. And then also taking the stuff that you learn doing stuff with like modular synthesizers or like hardware effects pedals like the Empress FX Soya, or like just any other way of making music, even instruments, right? Like playing drum kits or playing guitars, it'll always, like, when you go back to use these other tools, like say Serum or whatever, it'll make you think about those tools differently too.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I don't think it's a sound quality thing at all, even though it is also a sound quality thing. I don't think that's why people still have analog gear. I mean, you can get as good a sound quality out of digital stuff, I think.
I mean, I think better, right? Like you get usually...
In some cases, for sure. But yeah, it's more, and all, yeah, besides the tactile nature of it, it's also just the allowing for random accidents, because electronic music in the box, it's very easy to do everything so precise and have everything be controlled, no sounds out of place, nothing, everything quantized, everything just feeling like a bit stale. Whereas when you're working with analog equipment, it's really difficult to make things sound perfect and stale because of the nature of the equipment. So that's another benefit of it. But
right, you get like all these sort of weird slewing and like stuff that won't clock properly and shit like that.
Exactly. And up until the point where I started collecting analog stuff, I was already trying to get that randomness in the box. But again, yeah, it was like I was getting good results, but I wasn't having fun. So it's not about the result. It's about the journey for me,
right.
Make music.
Yeah, speaking of journeys, I want to talk about drum and bass a little bit because that's something you've had a bunch of experience with. I've tried to write drum and bass a few times, and I'm under the impression that it's just the hardest genre to make. It's like you can, if there's any genre that you like can't be a slacker in and get good results, it's drum and bass, right?
I suppose it might be that it's hard, or it's just hard coming from the perspective of somebody that's made like 4 to the floor stuff mostly, or like slower stuff, just because of the speed you have to work with, and yeah, the general sonic characteristics of the genre. It just seems harder, but I feel like it's just what you're used to, and it's like the way you think about it is what makes it hard, because it's really counterintuitive from, like, this is something that took me years to learn. I used to think about drum and bass as a house or as a trance producer would, and you have to it's like with drum and bass you have to throw all of that shit out the window because it's not applicable, because it's like you're flipping the whole focus of the mix. Whereas in trance or house, all the focus of the mix is on the kick and the melodies and the whatever, content is up front. Whereas like the key things in drum and bass are the drums and the bass. And and it's like they have to hit at different frequencies because you have to make room for like a whole different mix landscape, almost, if you want to put it like that.
Right. Speaking of what you're talking about now, I read somewhere that you said mixing, you think of mixing like painting. That's interesting. You want to explain that a little more?
Well, it's really difficult to find any material right now about like how to get better mixes as like a complete theory. It's like, here's how to get better kick. Here's how to get a better, like, here's how to make your vocals sound better. Or it's never like, here's why that makes your vocals sound better. And I feel like the closest thing we have to that is art theory, because there's so much written about what makes a good painting, and like how do you manipulate a 2D image to make you feel immersed in a 3D space. There's tons of material on that with art, but there are some people drawing analogies from art to describe making music, but yeah, I feel like it goes so much deeper than that. Every aspect of art theory can be applied to music theory, just like, for instance, just like the basic idea of contrast and texture. the same way that you get contrast in a painting just by like having some things be super detailed, some things be super loose, some things be super high contrast in terms of like values, and then some things be super faint. That makes a good image that your eye is drawn to. And yeah, the same thing happens in music when you're listening to a really nice mix down. It's because there's really good balance of all these different concepts, like stereo image and the basic like character of the sounds. Like you can, like I've noticed that the best music usually has like really contrasty elements, where you'll have a really like distorted lead element and then something behind it that's really airy and clean. And it's like everything can be applied from art theory to music theory. It's just you have to change the terminology a bit.
And you probably also have to have your own unique way of reconciling the two things, right? Like, so for instance, obviously some things are easily reconcilable. Like if in art theory, you're talking about something that's dark versus something in music that's dark. You're probably going to be talking about something that's more filtered and subdued, and maybe the note qualities are like more minory and stuff like that, versus something that's bright in art. It's going to be like more majory and maybe brighter, like more high frequencies, and maybe it's louder and stuff like that. But so to reconcile those is easy, but then when you get into like the thick of it, like it's going to be hard to reconcile certain things, right? Like texture could mean or types, texture types, I guess, could be like very different for different people.
Exactly. That's all subjective, but what's not subjective, I feel like, is the contrast between those different things. Like, sure, one sound might feel crunchy or sharp to one person and smooth and airy to another, but whatever's, layered on top of that to give it contrast will sound different in some way. And yeah, that's what creates that little sonic nugget of goodness that people look out for in music is contrast, drama, and yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I find I have a YouTube channel where I do a lot of tutorials. So by proxy of doing that, I get asked a lot of questions about Ableton, and like I get asked the classic shit all the time. Like, how loud should my sub be? I've read it in some interview that it should be -6 or like just some completely arbitrary number. But I think like what you're saying kind of answers that too, right? It's like it's all relative to anything else that's happening in the mix. Like they call it a mix down or a balance because it's a mixture of things or a balance of things, right? So it's like -6 to what? Like you could just have your sub sitting at -6 and it could just be a -6 dB sine wave that plays for 4 minutes straight. And then it's not a mix, and it's still the same thing that the guy said in the interview, but it's meaningless because it's not referenced against literally anything else in the mix or in the song.
Yeah, there's so much dogma to do with that. Besides that, it's like you have to have a -6 dB mix down, -6 dB lifts. I've heard that a lot. Or like, it's just it's bullshit because you can like the biggest one is like, oh, you shouldn't have your sub in stereo. Well, the reason you shouldn't have your sub in stereo is because most likely you want to have your lead elements and stuff like chords and stuff be a little bit wider and have more room to play with the stereo field in there, right? So the reason why most people don't have their sub in mono is because it would be too wide overall, like the sub is usually mono because it's contrasting with the other things that are super wide. But if you ever tried it, you can have a super wide kick and sub and then make everything else mono and it will sound great.
Yeah, I think the other reason is because a lot of clubs and stuff like that have their crossovers set to be like 80 or whatever the fuck, 60 or whatever, and they usually have everything running below that in mono, right? Or they don't have a stereo sub configuration. They just have all their subs sitting in the middle of the stage, and then the tops are the ones that they have configured stereo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine all sound systems. Like imagine the standard for setting up sound systems was putting all the tops right in the middle and all the subs right out to the sides.
Right. That would be funny. But who knows if at some point in history that became the norm, that might have been the norm. It's just we're used to hearing subs in mono and everything else wider. It's
right.
But
well, there's something to be said for familiarity too, right? Like if all the subs and are in mono and all the tops are wide in 90% of music that you've ever heard, then hearing that is usually going to sound more comfortable to you, right?
Exactly. But again, I've heard mixes where like the kick and the sub are super wide and then there's loads of stuff that's just mono, and it works because there's enough balance there to support that mix decision.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never really played around with that. I've played around with one thing I like to do, I do this actually quite often, is I'll have a section that's like super wide and a lot going on. And then, usually in drops you have a switch, right? Like 16 bars in. A lot of the times I'll make my switches like completely mono and have like 3 elements happening. It's like kind of goes from like this 400 IQ galaxy brain shit to just like 2 IQ.
Exactly. And that's what I love about it, is that whole thing about contrast can be applied to every aspect of production, not only just like the sound design and the frequencies, but over time. And yeah.
You got to be careful with contrast too, though, because I mean, if you want to relate it back to art, there's some paintings made by people who don't really know what they're doing. Probably, it's just like fluoro orange next to fucking fluoro green or something, and you're like, it's not the choice I would have made. But
right. But yeah, I mean, I think you can get away with those choices if the other aspects of that painting do have contrast. And I'm not talking just about color and value, like contrast between like hard edges and soft edges, or, contrast between a lot of detail and not a lot of detail, or contrast between pointy shapes and not so pointy shapes. You can get away with bold choices if the other things fit within that sort of balance overall,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think the same can be said on more of a macro level too, like DJ sets, right? For instance, like if you play a whole set of just like techno music from the same label and the same artists, it kind of by the end it has an overarching curated vibe that sounds very cohesive. But I almost find I get bored of those kind of sets in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you see somebody playing a set where they're just mixing all sorts of shit next to each other and they're doing it very flawlessly, but they're still like making these very conscious and well thought out decisions to mix like, a drum and bass track next to like an 8-bit chiptune remix of Zelda. And then like the next thing is some old hip hop rap track that, and then the next thing is like a meme. And then the next thing is like, another hard halftime tune or something like, and if you can,
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say that's not variety at that point. That's monotony. When you change everything up so dramatically, each track or each sound is so different, that becomes monotonous because it's like white noise.
You think so? Well, I think there's ways that you can do it where it's like very well curated. For instance, a good example of this is Yeti. He's just so good, in my opinion, at and actually the things that I was just mentioning were things that I've heard him do in a set, and I would disagree. I don't think it sounded monotonous. I think it sounded very engaging and interesting.
I'm sure it was related in some way.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like you have to, obviously think about it properly and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Is like sometimes people think, well, it has to, there has to be variety, and they go too far the other way of like trying to fit everything into this box. It's like using too many colors on your palette, and then everything just becomes, white,
gray or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be tasteful, and if it could suit my taste, that would be great.
Yeah, right.
said every opinion person ever.
Yeah, I think that it just comes down to having a varied taste. But no matter how varied your taste is, I feel like everyone's taste is related to their experiences in life, and that will make it all cohesive in some way. And
That's probably why we like music with like vocals in it, and we like stuff that's 4/4, right? Because everyone can talk, or most people can talk, and most people can walk. So, you know, if you're walking, that's sort of a 1-2 movement, and obviously talking is talking. So, I mean, we very quickly, I think, will look to things that are 4/4 and have vocals in them as familiarity.
I never thought about that in terms of 4/4, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But of course, like the first thing that we latch onto as a child is the sound of a human voice. So that makes total sense. But yeah, the walking thing, that makes a ton of sense as well. Now I think about it.
Right. I mean, it's probably why, you know, a lot of 4/4 music feels very comfortable, and a lot of like house music and shit feels somewhat comfortable. I mean, what tempo do we walk at? Probably like 80 BPM?
Yeah, I mean, depends. Depends on some people walk too slow, and
Yeah.
I'm a fast walker, so I get really frustrated like walking behind people sometimes.
Dude, I almost find it harder to walk slow than I do to walk fast.
Yeah, it's like you have to let gravity do its thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're walking fast, it's kind of like shit just is happening. But if you're walking slow, it's kind of like you're having to use your muscles more or something.
Exactly. You're not letting the inertia carry you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if you start walking and you're already at like a good pace, it's probably easier to just keep going than it is to stop. I wonder which uses more or less energy. I guess stopping probably uses more energy on the front end, but then because you've stopped, then you're conserving energy from that point on. So you probably like recoup your losses pretty quick.
Yeah, and if you're on even a slight downhill incline, then that is just multiplied.
Oh, dude. So San Francisco is the fucking worst for this.
Yeah.
I moved to San Francisco at the start of this year in January, and the hills around here are insane.
Mm-hmm. But it must be nice like having to walk up hills all the time. Because
it's kind of cool. I mean, it's good for exercise, and yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, some people are in Ohio walking on.
I used to in Ohio, so yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I played a show in Columbus late last year. Hey, YouTube. Hey, chill out. Dude, so my cat always does this shit where she brings a toy from another room to me and just does this shit. And I Googled why. I was like, why does my cat bring me a toy and meow at me? And apparently they do it because they think you're a shitty hunter. So they're like bringing you something to eat, basically.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, oh, I never see you hunting, so you're probably starving. So here's like food.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
They're so thoughtful.
Right. Well, fuck, man. I really appreciate you doing this podcast. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I found it really interesting.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on again, maybe in, I don't know, a year or something. It'd be cool to have you on with Matt Lang as well, because I had a really interesting conversation with him like last week or whatever.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'll be free for the next 2 years, so.
Nice. Yeah, hopefully we can do it in person next time. So when I first started this podcast, I was always doing them in person, and I kind of like made a pact to myself to never not do them in person. But then obviously this happened, and I was like, well, hopefully this like, just blows over in a few months, and then obviously the more this goes on, the more I see that that's not going to be the case, and also the more I look into history about stuff like the bubonic plague or the Spanish flu or the Black Death or like just any of that shit. You look at the dates, and it lasts a few years. So
yeah, exactly. All the health officials are saying it's going to be like at least 2 years until we can go back to work. But yeah.
So that's like 2 years. If it's 2 years until you can go back to work, that's 2 years until music events at least will happen again.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess you can travel freely before then probably, but you just can't have like people in the same space, like more than 100 people or something.
That's insane. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. If Donald Trump is saying we're going to have a vaccine by January 2021, I'm going to say it's January 2022 at least.
Yep. And even that deployment of that vaccine has never...
It's going to take a while.
But yeah, deployment of vaccines has never been like easy or quick.
So I got tested last week or something and it came back negative. And then yesterday I got the blood test for the antibodies and I have not got my result for that yet.
Good luck.
Yeah, see how it goes.
Well, yeah, congrats on being tested negative. Although it's like, if I was to be tested, I would kind of hope that I had, already had it and produced the antibodies, even though they're saying it's like not a sure immunity against it.
Right, you can get reinfected.
Yeah, I feel like I would feel more reassured knowing that I had it and whatever, because there was a little period where I did have like a headache for like 3 days, but that was it, and then it went away. And I should see if that was anything to do with corona, but
so at the start of all of this in March, like mid-March, right, I like went down to LA, hung out with some friends there, and then flew back. And when I got back, I was super sick. Like not like I could still like get out of bed and shit, but like my chest was fucking on fire. I had a dry cough. I was like, I had body pains. If I was like walking up even the slightest of inclines, like my whole chest would burn, and I was coughing up yellow phlegm and shit. And I Googled it, and it seemed like all the things pointed towards bronchitis. And at the time I had it, probably more people on the planet had bronchitis than coronavirus. So it's actually, at the time I had it, more likely that it was bronchitis than coronavirus. But I still am curious, so that's why I got the test.
Right. I mean, yeah, all the symptoms sound very similar. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, the only things I didn't have, I don't remember losing my taste. I don't remember headaches, and I don't remember. I don't think I had a fever, but I don't know because I didn't take my temperature. I have like this infrared temperature taker now. I can just point it at my head and shoot it like a gun. Yeah, and I take my temperature every day.
Yeah, I've tried to find like a bunch of different people's like testimony of their experience, and yeah, it seems to be like really different for everyone. No. Some people have one or two of the symptoms. Some people have none of the symptoms. Some people have it really bad. So it's really hard to tell without a test.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, at least they're getting on to the testing now. If they can't do the vaccine for a while, at least we can like figure out how many people have it and at least get good data.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important.
For sure. Well, man, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to chat with me.
Hey, yeah, my pleasure.
Is there anything you want to tell people, like where can people go check out your stuff and what kind of stuff are you working on and all of that kind of stuff, if you want to plug anything?
Yeah, I guess by the time this has gone out, my first single will come out. I don't know how close it will be to the second single, but yeah, I've got an album coming out in October, I think.
And is that on Madzu on your own label?
No, that's on Anjuna.
Okay. So it's more like a 4/4 thing?
Yep. Yeah, it's all within a sort of set tempo range as well. It's like the most like rigid I've been with myself. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be allowed to announce the full album by the time this podcast goes out. But
okay. Well, let me know, and if you... Yeah, we can edit it.
Let me know what date you plan on putting out, and then I'll...
Perfect, man. All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Mr. Bill podcast. These episodes are edited and uploaded twice a week by Robert Fumo of 303podpro.com. You can also support the show, get early access to episodes, and hear bonus content by going to patreon.com/Mr. Bill's Tunes and becoming a patron. Please rate and review on iTunes unless you're going to be a little shit about it. And all the links to my various platforms are at MrBillsTunes.com. Thank you.